Yeah. So you mentioned that people, as we get older, get diagnosed with ADHD, and maybe it's always been there. Maybe it always has. But also, as you get older, everyone's executive function starts to fail, starts to become weaker
Mhm.
over time. Your executive function doesn't become stronger, it becomes weaker over time. So, so I don't know if we were or we weren't, but yeah, by the
Right.
end, we all will be. So there's that.
Yeah.
Task initiation. There's a couple kinds of task initiation. It's things that you have to do all the time that you don't want to do. I'll give a story of kids cleaning their bedrooms. And then it's task initiation of things that you have to do because, like, for me, it's like writing the Friday weekly newsletter. I know I'm the only person that could do it. When I'm done, I'm always happy with what it looks like, but I never
Mhm.
want to do it. So I'll give solutions for both.
Welcome to Leadership Disrupted. For those of you who join us every week for one of these podcast episodes, you know that I really enjoy having interesting thinkers. I'll use the term thought leaders, interesting thought leaders, not just in the very specific area of leadership development, but in a lot of areas kind of on the periphery of what it takes to be an effective leader. And that's why I'm really excited about today's episode, because we have Lisa Woodruff, the founder and CEO of Organize 365, with us. And Lisa aims to teach America's young and old the skill of organizing and unlocking their time for what they are uniquely created to do. That's what I saw on her website that really grabbed my attention. Organize your time so that you can focus on what you are uniquely created to do. As the host herself of the top-rated Organized 360 podcast, Lisa shares strategies for reducing overwhelm, clearing the mental clutter, living a productive and organized life. And along with that productive and organized life, I think it frees us up to have more fun, to have more joy, to do more of what we really want to do with our lives. And so, with Lisa, her sensible and doable organization tasks appeal to multiple generations. She's a very real world, practical person. She's the author of 4 books, including How ADHD Affects Home Organization. So, we've got a ton of things that we're going to get into in this conversation. And Lisa, let me start with just welcome, first of all. Great to have you here. Is there anything you would like to maybe fill in for us so we understand who you are before we dive in?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm an old woman. Oh, I'm not that old, but I am
Oh, man.
54. And I say that because women tend to live like a lot of lives in one
Mhm.
lifetime. So, I was a preschool teacher, and then I was a stay-at-home mom. I worked in many direct sales companies, and I launched my company the year I turned 40. And in that last almost decade and a half of running Organized 365, I have really expanded my understanding of the work that household managers do and how different households look different in different seasons of life, in different ethnicities, in different ages, in different parts of the world. And so, as my learning has really expanded, I went back at the age of 50 and I got my PhD in applied psychology. And now I'm really working on how do we provide support to household managers in all different kinds of households, just like we would as teachers in schools. Because unfortunately, when we graduate from school, we hashtag adult and we move out into whatever dwelling we're going to live in, that's it. Like, our operational supports go away. There is no more learning about how to run a household other than what you can glean from people on the internet or people as you interview them on the street. Like, we're just kind of trying to figure out what we're doing on our own. And I think that we should have some more structure and support available to us when we want to learn how to run a household, not from a perfectionistic mindset, but from a not everything has to feel like Groundhog Day. Like, every time you go to do your taxes, it's like you've never done them before and you have to start all over again.
In particular, for women who, right or wrong, often are given the role of household manager and also working woman. So you may be the leader, the manager, the supervisor at work, and you have a certain set of skills for doing that, and then you come home, and there's just this unspoken expectation. And I'm gonna admit that my wife and I over the years, we've had this kind of relationship where she worked as much as I did. But when it came to the household, after you and I had the brief pre-interview conversation, I
Yeah.
realized, wow. So the moment you say household manager, I think her. I don't think us. I think her. And that's
one CEO and she's it.
It's horribly unfair because it's a CEO who's expected to mop and sweep and clean and do everything from the ground floor up and not so. In any event, I imagine that household managers who are also working women have a particular psychological makeup that puts them under a lot of stress oftentimes. That's what I'm thinking, but you tell me.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. So you say unfair. I don't know how unfair it is. So since dinosaurs roamed the earth, women have run households. Like, it is the original job. Like, men weren't working outside of the home. Women were already running the households. If you go all the way back, like, I love to tour presidential homes. So you go to Washington's home and Jefferson's home and Madison's home and all those that are right there in Virginia. And in every single one, their wife or their daughter ran the plantation because they weren't running it. Like, the men weren't running it. So like women have always run homes. So I think sometimes we think about just our myopic, like, here's our lived experience and what I heard on social media recently. So this must be fact. So women have always run homes long before men were doing any kind of work outside of the home. And also, yes, of course, there is cleaning to do. There's housework to do, laundry, dishes, and anything food related. Okay, that's your cleaning. There's a lot more to managing a household than just the cleaning. There's the scheduling and the ensuring. And yes, definitely women are doing more. And yes, academia will support that this increases stress in a woman because of the amount that she is shouldering. However, I believe, and I'm working in my PhD studies to support that when you apply organizational principles, operational foundations, and leadership principles to the role of household manager, just like you would in business, you reduce the stress and the overwhelm because you can put structures and systems in place, generalize what your roles are going to be, say, hey, that work isn't going to be done right now. I'm not trying to do everything. And you feel more empowered and in control.
So let's unpack that a little bit. When you do have I'll call it an intake conversation with someone where you are going to be of service to them. You're going to coach or guide them in some way. How does that conversation usually go? What kind of questions do you ask? What sort of things do you talk about?
That's so great. And I always forget sometimes when I get on these podcasts that people do one-on-one things with people. I don't do one-on-one things anymore. I used to do in-home organizing where I would go and I had like hundreds of those conversations. But now Organize 365 is kind of like an adult school. So you come to Organize 365. I have 11 years of podcast episodes that you can listen to for free. Wow. And then you're like, okay, this crazy, wacky person might be onto something. I want to get organized. How would I learn the skill of organizing? And then you start with the Sunday basket, or you go all in and you get the complete home organizing bundle. And we organize your physical space, your weekly planning, your trimester planning, and your paper information systems.
And so your focus is primarily the household, but I have to imagine a lot of those principles can be applied universally to the work environment as well.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, until last year, I also sold a work organizational system. And the only reason I stopped was because I loved it so much. And every business is just a little bit different than another one. It needs a little bit of tweaking. And so I really fell in love with creating these different systems and teaching people how to tweak their business systems. Whereas households are pretty universal. Like it's 20% unique, 80% the same. And so I got rid of the business part of my company so that I would be forced to focus on the home because there's no one else really helping people at home. And there are thousands of people helping you in business. But here's the similarities. So in business, you have sales and marketing, you have operations, you have finance. At home, you have sales and marketing, operations, and finance. So sales and marketing is taking care of you and the people inside of your household. Operations is making sure all of those regular maintenance tasks are done. And financial is your P&L. Like, so you're not actually doing free work at home. The work that you're doing at home has a revenue attached to it. And it is whatever you tell the IRS that you earned that year. is the money that you're recirculating into society. And
Mhm.
that's 68% of US GDP is household spending.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're big business over here.
So then, when people go through your online courses, I'm sure you hear back, from
Mhm.
people. What are some of their big ahas that you hear where they've been exposed to some idea or concept and they've tried it and it's worked well for them? What kind of amazing things do you hear?
So first of all, people think they can always get it done faster. And I say it's going to take a year to 3 years. Just like in business, you have to get through the full
Mhm.
cycle. They think I'm going to do it faster, and for sure it takes them 1 to 3 years. However, the thing that really surprises them the most is that they really do get their time back. They said, I thought this wouldn't work. I thought like maybe it'd be cute, my house would look better, but I wouldn't actually have time. And you end up, after your home is organized and operationalized, you have so much time you don't know what to do with it. And the stories of what women do with their time when they have unlocked time is, I mean, that's what we need. We need
Mhm.
women to be chasing their dreams and doing what they're uniquely gifted and created to do. And instead, they're perfectly folding their laundry and labeling all these bins. I'm like, I have nothing labeled. I have nothing labeled. And all of my grandkids' socks are not matched. So let's take our time and do whatever you're uniquely gifted and created to do. That could be starting a foundation. It could be volunteering. It could be starting a business. It could be going and taking care of your grandchildren or whatever it is. And those are the stories that just warm my heart. But it does take some time to learn the skills and put those operational structures in place so that you have that unlimited time. If you just take the time, and this is what I used to do, I'd be like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm just going to take a week and do something for myself. The problem is when you're done, you're doubly behind. But
Yeah.
if you put
Yeah.
operational systems in place, then when you come back and there's not this mountain of work left for you to do. It's not guilty.
Well, and I have to imagine if you take the time to think through how are you currently spending your time and what value is being created for you in
Mhm.
spending it that way. Whether it could be as simple as, okay, you got a sock drawer. Um, um, my wife likes like lots of different kinds of socks, multicolored socks. Perfectly fine. Not judging that at all. But I know it takes a bit of time to then find the matchy socks and put them together. Whereas I have one color. I have black socks, only black socks. I have like 24 pair of black socks. And
Yes.
when socks get worn out, toss them away. And I wait until maybe I only have 12 pair left. And I go to Amazon and I order another packet of the exact same socks.
Yes.
And I can just throw them in and I just don't worry about it at all. Now that is not to say I'm a hugely well organized person. It's just one example of how I decided, you know what? Yeah, I like cool socks too, but I just don't want to take the time to find those matches and do whatever with them. Um, what I, I have I have an assumption, and this could be wrong. You'll be
Okay.
able to tell me if I'm wrong. I have an assumption that our lives have become more complicated because we have more options and more things and more stuff and more distractions and just there's just more. It's from social media to news media to business media to just things around us, things that you can do, options that you have. I think people are cognitively overloaded. They're just
Mhm.
overstimulated, and there really is just too much. And maybe one of the first things someone can do for themselves is really think through what do I cut out? What can I
Yeah.
just eliminate from my life to get back to something closer to simple? But I don't does that prompt any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's more complicated, but
Okay.
it definitely is more distracted. And the reason I say that is because I just think back to 2012 when I started my company. It was so complicated to do everything. I had to learn how to do it and then find the thing and then do it and then follow up.
Mhm.
Whereas now, I mean, like you can code like with Gemini, like everything is so
Yeah.
simple, everything is so easy now. And doesn't take a lot of effort to find information, but we're so distracted when we're looking for the one thing. We're like, oh, shiny thing over here. Maybe I'll do
Yeah.
this. Maybe I'll do this. And so I think that because it is easier, like for a fact, I could not have started this company before 2012. I couldn't have started in 2000 or 19, 98 or something like
Mhm.
that. So I needed the infrastructure that was in place for an online person to start a company in 2012. So now today, the barrier to entry for people starting a company is so low, and anybody could start a company, which actually makes it harder because the complexity is not there to slow you down and make you think and make you
Yeah.
plan and make you really work for it. Everything's becoming very, very easy to do. Like I remember I'm a terrible speller. So as soon as my kids got phones and they would ask me how to spell something, I'd be like, ask Siri, because I don't know how to
Mhm.
spell it and I'm not going to use the cognitive bandwidth to
Mhm.
figure it out. So my kids got really good at asking how to spell things to Siri. Well, they ask Siri everything. Like, hey, this, hey, that. Like, we don't even we ask someone else. And as we're asking the other person, we're already looking up the answer. Like, we don't even have to wait very hard to get information. So because everything is so easy, we are so distracted. I think people are more distracted, and also not willpower, but just discipline. We're not disciplined. We're losing discipline by the handfuls. And we're just like, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, that's kind of hard. I guess I just don't need it. It really concerns me how little discipline we have in some of the really, really big things in our lives that we just
And
don't
then
want to put the effort in anymore.
when we are confronted with a tough problem, I think
Yeah.
many of us are losing that, whether it's resilience or grit or that
Yes. All those things.
stick-to-itiveness to say, I'm gonna work my way through the tough
Right.
problem. Instead, I might look for an answer on Siri or ChatGPT or Claude, and it might help. I mean, that's good. It might help. In fact, I'll give you one really quick example. We live in a fairly rural area. We've been here about 3 years. Moved from the Twin Cities into a very rural area. I never owned a property with 10 acres of
Wow.
grassland that once a year you have to spray it with an animal-friendly herbicide to keep the weeds down. So, okay. So now the previous owner left a sprayer, but no instructions. And then I have a brother-in-law who's a farmer not too far away, and I asked him, "Well, what would you use, like, as herbicide?" And he gave me a recommendation, so I ordered it. But these herbicides that farmers get, they're not for consumers. They don't come with instructions. It's not, well, measure 3/4 of a cup and do it is. So I sit there with, I've got a sprayer, I've got an instrument to move it, I've got I figured out how it works. And what I had to do is sit down with a pad of paper and think through, okay, what's the width of the spray? What's the gallons per minute? What is the speed of the device? And what I did was I put the device into motion, and then I used the accelerometer on my phone to measure my speed. So I got my
Oh,
speed,
wow.
and I got everything that I needed. And this was like 2 hours. I spent 2 hours on figuring this thing out. And at the end, I got exactly what I needed and had it written everything down. And was a so that happened. But then the next year, I had learned the wonders of ChatGPT on my phone, and I had lost my
Piece of
figures,
paper.
my paper. And so I asked ChatGPT, how do I figure this out? It asked me a couple of questions, it calculated it, boom, 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 done. And then when
Yeah.
it came to the final answer, I remembered, oh yeah, that's the answer. It's 3.5 gallons or whatever. But I remember this feeling of emptiness. Like, wow, last year
Mm.
I sat down and I figured that thing out, and it felt something. I don't know that it felt good. It felt like an exercise. And then this year,
Accomplished.
yeah, it was like the next year, it was just white sugar. It was just,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's great. That's more convenient. But it caused me to wonder, you take that, you multiply it by 1,000,000 times, billions of times, what is happening to us cognitively in terms of our ability to solve problems, think critically, engage with each other in critical dialogue. Again, I didn't mean to rant, but
Yeah, no, I'd love to go off this. So you're talking about cognitive overload, and this is what I studied for my dissertation, was this idea of using our working memory nonstop. So we never get to the executive function of planning because we're always in the executive function of working memory, checking things
Mhm.
off of our to-do list, which is stressful and overwhelming. So and I know you have a lot of podcast episodes exploring AI, which I admittedly am tiptoeing into the AI waters. Like I am not diving in, and also I'm receiving a bunch of AI junk. And so I'm not really excited about AI. And then I see all these huge companies that are very, very profitable, laying off large portions of their workforce and then staying profitable. I'm not liking that at all. And it reminds me of an interview that Jensen, the owner of NVIDIA, did. And he said, those of you that are using AI to eliminate your workforce are doing it wrong. This is the biggest company in the world now. NVIDIA is the biggest company in the world. Jensen is a genius, Elon Musk style. And he says, you are supposed to be using AI to do the administrative, robotic, repetitive tasks to free up your employees' time to make new things, not to send them out to pasture. And I know that this is going to work. I know that it's going to work eventually because I'm an eternal optimist. But I think that we're in this messy middle where, yeah, you can get everything done really quickly. And if someone like me is not real AI adept, you can snow me for a while, but I'm not falling into this trap. And I am unlocking my employees' time for what they are uniquely gifted and created to do. My time to do this podcast interview instead of, I don't know, I'm not replacing very much with AI yet, but eventually something will get replaced with AI. Because I know that the work of running a household, like AI is coming for us last. So yeah. I'll be working forever. And I think that the cognitive overload is coming from the too much stupid information coming in too fast and us trying to process that.
I am personally, I'm very reticent about using AI for any of my personal writing. So I'm very cautious about that. However, I just finished writing a manuscript. How many pages?
Congratulations.
200 pages, big manuscript. And after I was done, I did upload it into Claude, and I asked Claude to identify any inconsistencies, any duplications, to basically act as an editor and identify anything for me. It was amazing. Honestly,
really?
Claude said, here, Dan, this theme that you mentioned in chapter 1, you repeat it several times. And by the time you get to chapter 7, it starts to feel repetitive. So it didn't just identify the duplication, but it identified when it would start to feel to most people like, you already said that. And then it identified a couple of places where you promised in chapter 1 that you were going to share a story of X. I found no story of X. Yeah, exactly. Like that kind of stuff. I would have to pay an editor, and he or she would probably still miss it, or might still miss it. So those kinds of things, I'm finding it is absolutely amplifying or accelerating my productivity. But I just see too many of my friends who used to post little like 1-paragraph stories on LinkedIn that would be kind of clever or a little update on what they're doing. And I could feel their heart in it. I could feel them. And it wasn't always perfect, but it was always them. And now suddenly they're posting 8-paragraph posts with lots of, quote, deep thoughts. And I just feel like, I've lost you. You're not there anymore because AI has allowed you to create these things that look impressive, but I don't think so much. Okay, so then in this arena of productivity, what trends have you seen? Because you've been doing this a long time now. Are you seeing anything change in society in general, with people in general? What kind of trends, if there are any, that are you seeing?
Yeah, it's funny. When you were talking, I was thinking about productivity. And I was like, oh yeah, this is digital productivity. So I pretty much stay in my lane, which is analog. It's like so old school. Like, here's the email you and I have about our podcast. Here are the notes about what we were just talking about. Like, I have a lot of analog around me. And the reason I have analog around me is because I'm exhausted from the digital revolution. I mean, the digital revolution is just never ending. So you're mentioning Claude, which right now is the #1 AI to be using in anything like this. But 6 months ago, it was ChatGPT, and 6 months from now, it'll be something different. Yeah. So if you're not listening to this podcast in real time, like this Claude might not even exist I'm sure it'll exist. But, you know, when you think back to when we first had dial-up internet and there was Netscape, and then there was like, you know, if you are using digital tools, I believe digital tools help in personal productivity, but usually not in collaborative productivity. Now, obviously we're meeting on digital, like to record this, or you can use
Sure.
Google Docs and you could say those are collaborative productivity. Yes and no. Yes, they are, in that you can get something done in real time with somebody else. But then how you organize that Google Drive as to where those documents are is very individual. Like in my company, we now only have 6 people and we still don't know how anything is organized. Everybody labels something different. Everybody puts everything differently. So I like to say, if you want to learn something, do it in analog. And if you want to save something, do it in analog. All the digital stuff is for the productivity while you're creating it, while you're sharing it. When you're done, make it analog again. And the reason why I say this, I'm going to pull you back into the household again for a minute. If you are very digitally oriented and you've got like a Google Calendar and you understand how your Google Drive works and all of that, that is wonderful. Great for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine your mother-in-law just fell and broke her hip. So now she's in the hospital, she's headed to rehab, and you are in charge of her household. Guess what? It is not digital.
It is not digital, right?
She doesn't even own a computer, by the way. So there aren't even passwords to know. No need to find the passwords. There's nothing online. The way that you get to find out what the bills are to pay is you go to the mailbox and then you find their checkbook. And there are usually multiple checkbooks and they want different checkbooks for different things. And way too many credit cards because they have every single department store known to man. Worst case scenario, you are now the executor of the will. Now they're not even there to ask the questions. Now you're waiting for the mail, et cetera, et cetera. I have been through this. This is how I know this. And the truth of the matter is almost everyone will settle someone's estate. My husband and I will probably settle 7 because we are the oldest children. And no one thinks about that. So digital is great. Like follow all these digital things, do all the AI you want. But when you're running a household, like you're saying, a farm, and you're going to have to spray that herbicide the year after and the year after and the year, write it down, find that paper. You need a Sunday basket so you would know where your paper was next year because you would have it because you wrote it on paper. You just couldn't find the paper. Paper is powerful and paper is super easy to use to communicate. You don't have to have an iPhone versus whatever the other kind of phone is. Like they don't share information. Like when you hand somebody paper, they understand what you're handing them and they can read it. And it really helps in communication.
And you know, you probably know the root underneath this, but I've gone through. I mean, I'm old enough. I've gone through many waves. I went through a phase where I was going totally digital. I bought one of those digital notepads that's supposed to be like a replacement for paper. Yeah, and it was all very efficient. And then I would have conversations with people, and I would take notes. And it had this application where it would record and transcribe the conversations, and it was hyper efficient, but it had that same feeling of white sugar. Like something's missing. So what I do, I mean, I'm also an analog person. I have notes upon notes upon notes, and I keep them. I actually have a couple of binders where that are about that thick, that are 3-hole punch binders. I take my note pages and I put them in there. Now there does come a point where I clean them out because they don't have a long lifespan. But then I will find, if I go back 6 months later and I look through some of the notes, there will be some pages that I want to keep that I'll take photos of. I'll take a photo with my phone and I will save that because I want that drawing. I want that diagram. I want that haiku that I wrote. But I don't know what it is, but there is just something unique about writing on paper. For me, there's a particular pen that I just happen to like the tactile feeling of that particular pen. And luckily it's not too expensive, so I can buy, a bunch of them. And I did a full shift back to analog with occasional use of digital, if that makes sense.
So many people are doing that right now. There is such a resurgence of analog. Analog definitely reduces cognitive overwhelm in so many scientifically proven ways. There are a lot of studies that will just take random people in a fully experimental condition where they have to watch a video and take notes either with a stylus on an iPad, or take notes by typing on a computer or writing on a piece of paper. The people who write on a piece of paper have better memory, have better recall every single time, and less cognitive overwhelm. And as you're writing, they've taken people under fMRI machines. As people are writing on paper, it lights up different parts of their brain. It literally takes things out of your working memory and puts it deeper into your memory and reduces the overwhelm. So writing by hand on paper definitely reduces cognitive overwhelm. One of the things that I have done in my Sunday basket is I don't keep anything in my brain at all. I write every single thing down on an individual index card. I go through a lot of index cards. And then at the end of the day, I look at my index cards, and if they can wait till Sunday, they just go in my Sunday basket. And if I need to do them, I do them. And if I've already done them, I just recycle them. But in doing that, I do not use my brain as a to-do list. My brain doesn't have to remember anything that would be on a to-do list. But I don't make a to-do list because a to-do list is something you have to constantly scan and reorder and reprioritize, and that's overwhelming as well. So I do index cards. That's what I'll be doing my research on now that I have my PhD. I'm going to be seeing if we have support that this really does keep you mindful and keep you present and reduce the overwhelm like I think it does.
You know, you have just relieved me of a burden of guilt because I have felt guilty about Post-it notes. I have 20 different Post-it notes. They're mostly in a pile, but I've got a few of them around, and I love the feeling of something's done, you crumple it up and throw it away. Yes. But it just seems to work for me as opposed to the list over here where the thing that I don't really want to do just gets skipped. I just go down the list, skip, down the list, skip. Whereas if the Post-it note is sitting there, it's there until I finally finish it up, whatever it is. You talk a lot about ADHD, and I think that is a topic of interest to a lot of people. There may be listeners who have formal ADHD diagnoses. There are other listeners who may be leaders. They may not have a formal diagnosis, but the more they read and listen about ADHD, they're thinking, oh, you know what? I'm 45 years old, and now I'm suddenly realizing I may have had this issue for the longest time. It's all starting to make sense. How do you merge the ADHD brain and organizational skills? What do you talk about at that intersection?
Okay, so here's my background with ADHD. I was a teacher, so I had children who had ADHD, so I got training in that. My children at different times were diagnosed with ADHD. Recently, I've been diagnosed with ADHD. So ADHD is the executive function of the mind. So I'm going to read out of the book that I have. There are 8 different executive functions that I study. Some are emotional control, some are cognitively controlled. I specialize more in the ones that are cognitively controlled. And by specialize, I mean research. I'm not a cognitive psychologist. So emotional control and impulse control, these are your emotional regulations, like the kid darting into the street, not thinking before they go. That is impulse related. I don't do that. All scientists understand that working memory is the role of the executive function, like being able to hold something in your head and work on that problem, like you were when you're figuring out how much you needed to spray of that, or if you're remembering someone's phone number or a passcode or something like that. All of the other executive functions are after working memory. So working memory is the primary thing, like to help you get things done. The additional working memories are flexible thinking. So flexible thinking is being able to think about other scenarios. That's why I love to talk about business related concepts in the household. It helps men engage in what is the work that women are doing, and it helps women think about the work they're doing differently so they could see different solutions. Self-monitoring is the ability for you to see how far you are in doing something and not be like, oh my gosh, this will never be done. I've been doing this forever. Like you can kind of see your progress. Task initiation is the ability to start something, like to not just stay on the couch, be like, I don't wanna, and you get up and you actually do it. Like that is an executive function. Planning is an executive function, and organization are executive functions. So we talk about planning, we talk about organization. You must have at least a functional level of organization in order for your working memory to be able to get things done. And you cannot do planning unless you give yourself some time, set aside time in order to plan, because otherwise you're always doing the task. They are separate executive functions that need separate kind of times. I'll stop because I think you want to say something and then we'll go.
Well, you said a lot there, and task initiation grabbed my attention. Okay. This is going to be very selfish.
Okay.
But I think it's one of my big challenges is getting started with the uncomfortable stuff. Like I initiate tasks all the time,
Yeah.
but there are a few specific tasks. You made a face earlier. That's my face. That is
Yes.
like,
Yes.
I know I need to. I know I should. I got to.
Yes.
And then I wait until it becomes a crisis. And then
Me
once
too.
it's a crisis, okay, then I initiate. But
Mhm.
that's holding me back in some areas, and I need to stop. Any guidance or thoughts?
Yeah. So you mentioned that people, as we get older, get diagnosed with ADHD, and maybe it's always been there. Maybe it always has. But also, as you get older, everyone's executive function starts to fail, starts to become weaker
Mhm.
over time. Your executive function doesn't become stronger, it becomes weaker over time. So, so I don't know if we were or we weren't, but yeah, by the
Yeah,
end, we all will be. So there's that.
yeah.
Task initiation. There's a couple kinds of task initiation. It's things that you have to do all the time that you don't want to do. I'll give a story of kids cleaning their bedrooms. And then it's task initiation of things that you have to do because, like, for me, it's like writing the Friday weekly newsletter. I know I'm the only person that could do it. When I'm done, I'm always happy with what it looks like, but I never
Mhm.
want to do it. So I'll give solutions for both. Okay, so kids cleaning bedrooms. The thing about kids who do have ADHD as children is they are having issues with their executive function. And Dr. Barkley says, if you have a child that's diagnosed with ADHD, you should think about that child as 2/3 the age they are. So if you have an 18-year-old, you should think of them as a 12-year-old.
Okay.
It's also why he thinks children with ADHD should wait to drive. Anyways, so when you are helping a child with ADHD organize their bedroom, which I did many times, it is hard for them to start, to stay on task, to get done, all of those things. And so the way I have taught students to do it over the years is you create a script. And so the script is this: first, go in and get all the dirty laundry and take it wherever the dirty laundry needs to go. Second, go in and get all the food and dishes, because I don't know why, but there's always food and dishes. Go in and get all the food and dishes, take that to the kitchen. Third, go back and collect all of the trash that needs to be collected. And once all the trash is collected, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do all the things you're going to do to organize your bedroom. And I have a course that kids go through and they learn this. I taught my kids this skill, and they both have a hard time. All people have a hard time once the mess gets too big to do it.
Yeah.
My kids are both independent adults, and they will occasionally say to me, "Oh my gosh, my apartment is such a mess. I don't know what to do." And I will say on the phone, "Okay, well, go get all your laundry, get it started, and call me back." And they never call me back, because once they do the laundry, they then do the dishes, they then do the trash. And next thing you know, they're like in the mode of organizing, and now they know how to do it. So creating a script, like getting started is hard, but then once you start it, it's almost like that snowball effect. Oh, I've done this a million times. Like mulching the yard. I don't want to. You rip open the first bag of mulch. You're not going to stop after one. You're going to rip all 90 open and do it, and then get your shower and go out to eat or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to start, but you know how to do it once you get started. Then let's talk about the writing the newsletter one. So a lot of us are going to push something up to the last minute. I do this too. I think it's also an entrepreneurial thing, if you're an entrepreneur or a leader of any kind, because we always have this little bit of buffer in our week, because the unexpected is going to happen. We're the leader. We're going to have to take care of that. So I could do the newsletter now, but I could always do it tomorrow. I have a space tomorrow. And so I'll say to myself, yes, Lisa, but if the unexpected happens, which it always does, then you're going to be doing your newsletter at midnight. So just do it now. Do it now. I'm like, fine, I'll do it. So I like have this whole conversation, and then I start typing. And then I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Why did I give myself such a hard time about this? So I time block it. Like I put everything on the calendar and I time block it. And when it's there, I throw a little temper tantrum in my head and I go, all right, let's go. Let's get it done.
When it comes to task initiation, prioritization, one of the common themes I hear from leaders is that they know instinctively, or they know intuitively, that their priority should be their people, their time priority should be their people, and yet over and over again, as we kind of unpack how they're operating in their world, we have a course called Getting Stuff Done, within that course we have a lot of conversations about how are you currently doing your stuff, getting things done, and consistently what they will tell us is, well, my one-on-one meetings, I used to have a one-on-one every week with each one of my team members. I just didn't have enough time, so that went to every other week. And now it's about every other week or every third week. Or I've gone to small group meetings. So I'll meet with 3 of them at once or 4 of them at once. And then I will ask, so then how frequently do those meetings get canceled? Well, actually, you look at your day at the beginning of the morning and you just have too much stuff. And those are the meetings that are easy to cancel because nobody pushes back. Nobody will say to the boss, don't cancel my one-on-one. That's important to me. Then with one exception, if someone is planning to resign,
yeah, right.
They're
Becomes
counting,
an immediate meeting.
Yeah, they're counting on that meeting.
Oh, geez, come on in.
And so then what is ostensibly most important consistently gets short shrift.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a great answer for this, but I usually do say, okay, you intellectually understand where your priorities should be. So take those meetings and block them in and do not move them. Do not cancel them. Mm-hmm. The reason you're canceling them now is because of the ease. If you cancel, no blowback. Whereas with some of these other meetings, you're going to have to explain to people. You're going to have to shift the meeting to another time. But if you just discipline yourself to not cancel those meetings, you'll figure the rest out. It's like a game of Tetris. The Tetris will work its way out. You'll figure out how to do everything else that needs to be done. But I don't know that that's a great answer. So I want to ask you just any thoughts on how to prioritize some of those, softer, fuzzier things. They're easy to do and easy to not do. And because they're easy to not do, they kind of drift.
Yeah. So I mentioned to you before we started recording that I was getting my PhD, which is 25 hours a week, plus working, plus all these other things. I had it all calendar blocked and I was getting everything done. And I was going in my 3rd year and I was talking to someone on my team and I said, oh, you know what? I'm starting to get through the courses. This is going to lighten up. I wonder what I'm going to use my time for. And she said, well, maybe you'll talk to us then. And I was like,
oh yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, because I used to come into the office and spend about 30 minutes walking around, talking to everybody, finishing up a podcast, puttering around, and then I would get started with my day. But when I started the PhD, I came in even earlier, door shut, let's go, and I was like hard charging towards this goal. And I don't regret doing that, but I'm so glad that she said that in the way that she said it, because I was like, that is right. So meetings, maybe you don't need meetings, but you definitely have to have connection. And what happens is when your team is good, when your team is really good, and you've taken the time to put them in roles that are unique to them, where they are a great individual contributor, they really don't need meetings. But they do need connection to you and to the mission and the vision of the company. And so you don't necessarily have to have a meeting on the calendar, but you need to be purposefully and proactively making sure that you're making connections with your team members. So I have some team members where they just really want to tell me about their weekend. So Monday morning, 30 minutes, like I'm making the coffee and we're talking for 30 minutes and it is on my calendar, you guys. It's all on my calendar. Or I have some team members that don't live in town. And when they come in town, I make sure to have a meal one-on-one with them when they're in town, or send them a couple of Voxer notes throughout the year. Not very often, but when I think of it, I do it. I probably should do it more often. I'll send my team handwritten notes. And I'm always thinking about them. So I employ all women except for my son. And a lot of the women are single or, are in a single household now. And so this is their sole income, and gasoline prices are going up if you didn't notice. And for a lot of us, you notice, you don't notice $1 per gallon, but some people $1 per gallon is a really, really big deal.
For sure.
And so in 2022, and again, now we have a gas stipend. So if you work in the office, which I value working in the office, you get an extra bonus in your paycheck. To offset the cost of having to drive into the office. And that means a lot to the people that come into the office, because I don't have to do that. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't complain about it, but I've thought about their circumstance and how working for me impacts their home life. And they are always going to show up and give me their best. And so I'm always putting their thoughts ahead of mine. So I think it's just like that, like thinking about what do they like? Like, can you go out to dinner once a quarter with each of your team members? And you don't even need one-on-ones at that point. So how do you keep that connection going? And most importantly, they want that uninterrupted time with you so they can surface conversations and not feel like they're just a robot in your show.
And so the goal of becoming more organized, whether it's in the household or at work is not, as I understand it from you, is not, well, then to find more time to pack things into. Let's get more organized so that we can push more in. It's actually get more organized, pull things out so that you have some of that time where you're taking a breath and you're wondering, oh, this actually feels a little guilty. This feels, this feels strange because I don't have something spinning in my head right now. I could wander down the hall and say hi to somebody. I could take a few extra minutes and read something, have a sip of coffee, or that slow down time. I think leaders oftentimes, for whatever reason, don't have enough of that. Maybe it's because they don't feel comfortable, they feel guilty. I did have a few years ago, one of my direct reports, she came to me and she'd been trying to get some time with me for some time, and the meeting kept getting bumped. And I apologized, but it was clear she'd had enough. And so she gave me a little talking to. She said, I appreciate your apology. I do, but it's been 3 weeks and I really need to get some answers for this. And then she emoted. She said, I feel guilty saying it because you're always so busy. I know you've got a lot going on. And as she said these words, honestly, I realized that's just not right. It's not right. I have this illusion of being so hyper busy all the time, always got stuff going on. Maybe it's my own way of protecting myself from the interpersonal things that I'm not particularly good at, not particularly comfortable with. So I'm busy, task, get it done. And that was a wake-up call for me. I'm still not great at it, but it was a bit of a wake-up call. And also, when I hear you talking, I realize the goal of work is to create freedom, is to create a sense of peace, not to create more work. So I appreciate, I mean, I know that wasn't the intent of this call, but honestly, this is very helpful for me to think about my own mindset toward all the busyness that I experience day in and day out. When in your own life, when you have challenges with time, because I'm sure you've had portions in your life where you have felt overwhelmed. How do you catch yourself? How do you stop and recognize, oh wait, I'm over complexificating something, or I'm overdoing this, or we had talked prior to in the pre-interview, we talked about having varying degrees of perfection. Not everything has to be exactly the same level of perfection. If I'm getting heart surgery, I want a perfectionist doing my heart surgery. If somebody's mowing my lawn, how perfect does it really have to be? But I guess my question is, how do you manage yourself continuously?
I think that if I look back in my life, the times where I'm most stressed and overwhelmed, I start the biggest organization projects. And I think the reason we do that is because we're kinesthetically doing something with our hands that allows us to get some pent up frustration and energy out in situations we're not in control of. So thinking back to 2007, when my father was sick and he wouldn't listen to the doctors and do what he needed to do. And my sister and I knew this was ultimately going to fall on us because my parents had gotten divorced. And I was so frustrated that I took our walk-in pantry. It was just like a door and like a closet. I took everything out of it. And then I took all the shelves out of it. My husband was like, what are you doing? I was like, I think this would be great if there was a bookshelf in here. He was like, do we have the bookshelf? I said, we will. So I went to the store and I put a bookshelf and I assembled it in there. It was not as functional as it was before. And then I took a sledgehammer to the windowsill above our sink. He's like, what are you doing now? I said, I really want a Yankee Candle to fit on this window ledge above this thing. And he goes, all right. I mean, I have zero carpentry skills. So I went again back to Home Depot. I'm getting a shelf. By George, we did have a Yankee Candle on that thing by the end of the weekend because I couldn't control my parents' divorce. I couldn't control my dad being sick. I couldn't control being 4 hours away. I couldn't control so many other things. But by George, we were going to have a really less functional pantry and there's going to be a candle above my sink before the end of the weekend if I had anything to do about it. I think the kids were like 4 and 8, and they were running around. I remember my husband was watching like football or something, and he just kept watching football, and he would not come anywhere near the kitchen because he didn't know what to do about it. So I think sometimes we tend to start these big projects in seasons when we shouldn't, just because we want to have control over something, anything.
Yeah.
The other time I would say is, now I'm a little bit older and I don't have as much energy. So I'm like, oh, darn, this is going to stink, but I'm not going to redo my old kitchen over it. As you get older and your parents and grandparents get older and, one fall and you break a hip or you break a whatever, this is a cascading, 3 to 6 months of doctor's appointments, running 2 households and all these, and it happens like that. And all of a sudden, however organized you are when that fall happens is how organized you are for that entire experience. And it's not until that experience is over that you can really work on your operational systems and your organization. You can't gain any organization during that time. You can just run on the operational systems you already have in place. So I find as we get older, you'll have these shots across the bow where like, oh, mom fell, but she's okay. You're like, oh. And then the next time, oh, she's got to be in rehab for a couple of weeks. And that's when you realize, oh, we don't even have passwords and nothing's digitized. And we don't have people secondary on these accounts. So these would be locked down if anything bad happened. You get a couple of these warning shots. And then, ultimately you're settling in this state. And so I saw that with my dad too. I was his power of healthcare and power of attorney. And then he took that back for a while and then he got sick and then he passed away. And so as I took it back the second time, I was like, okay, there were things I was afraid to do the first time or I didn't feel was my place. Or, you just feel weird as the kid doing things for your parents, but he couldn't make those decisions anymore. And he had a terminal condition. And so I finally said to my sister, we got to do these things these last couple of weeks while we have the ability to, because once the estate is done, there's nothing you could do. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll share a couple.
Please.
Okay. When you find out that you are power of healthcare and power of attorney. So power of attorney is when you have the ability to spend people's money and sign for checks and things like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't know this, but there are varying degrees of powers of attorney. I had the most liberal one. I could buy and sell property. I could do anything I wanted. So my sister and I both, and you can have multiple powers of attorney. You want one executor. My sister and I were both executors. First thing we did is she denied it. So I was the only one. If you have multiple powers of attorney, anyone can do anything. If you have multiple executors, both have to do everything. So you do not want to have that.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah, you only want one executor. I mean, you need a successor executor, but you don't want 2 at one time. So power of attorney, we were able to take our childhood home and change the title of the deed to transfer on death, which meant that it bypassed probate. This is the number one thing I tell people. If you're married, the house is going to pass to the surviving spouse, that's no problem. But if both spouses leave or you are single, then it's going to go to probate, meaning that 30 or 50% is going to go to the government instead of to your heirs because it's going to go through probate. So you want to do transfer on death. So that's one of the things we did when my father was sick. You could do that with titles on cars as well. And then you just want to make sure you have the beneficiaries for any 401ks or anything like that. Usually you do, life insurance policies too. Usually you do. And then when someone passes away, those 401ks, the house, anything that is transfer on death is instantaneous. You don't even have to wait for anything. And I think it was 3 days later, my sister and I were able to go into the 401k and they divided it in half and gave it to my sister and I. And that was great. As the executor, you want as many things transfer on death as possible because the people that are inheriting things don't understand this thing called probate that takes a year and they get really ticked off when they know that there's money and you're not, and it's for them and you're not giving it to them. So just a little side note.
And they're pretty sure that as the executor, you've got some secret thing that you're doing because
right. Anyway, my sister and I handled it really, really well. But you could picture in other family scenarios, or if I'm going to do this 7 times, I'm probably not going to get lucky all 7 times. And it's amazing how difficult processing death in a family is, the dynamics that change in families and holidays. And, some people have really dire financial situations. And so they really need access to that money much quicker than they're legally allowed to have it.
So what I take away from this, Lisa, is those things in the not too distant future that you tend to not want to think about. You're not forced to do anything, but you're highly recommending that you think through and do and prepare all the things that you should be prepared for. And I've experienced it both ways. I've experienced the death of a family member where everything had been fairly well planned. There was a single executor. Like everyone knew what was going to happen, down to the specific color of the casket. The person had pre-selected her casket. It was all done. It was a very stress-free transition of that person's life. In a different family, I experienced a totally different dynamic, and it was clear it wasn't just one person. Like the entire family dynamic was disorganized, it was just bad. Nothing was really planned. So then everything became a discussion, everything became an argument, everything in this hyper emotional
Yep. It's so fun, isn't it?
Oh,
so fun.
Man. And so I wonder, in terms of family dynamics, are there, you talk about, household managers, and a household manager has to deal with his or her own, family dynamics. But are there times where the issue isn't just you, the individual, but the humans around you, and somehow this interplay of habits, of expectations, of leaving messes, or whatever the things might be? What happens if you're caught in this maelstrom of family dynamics and you feel like you're not sure how to gain control over all of that?
Yeah. So clearing out the family home and dividing all the assets is exhausting. It's a lot of work. It's what people talk about. It's what people see. But the bigger work and the financial work is really in the paperwork. So now we're back to, I am all about analog. Yeah. Because if you're running your household today and you're thinking that, oh yeah, I do pay all the bills, and does my spouse even know all the passwords? Probably not. Or when they're like, it's all digital. It is so much harder when it is digital than if the mail is just coming in and you're going to do it that way. So this is why I created the paper solution. So the paper solution replaces the file cabinet and organizes your paperwork into 4 categories: everything related to your house that you would need if you sell it, everything related to your health, everything related to your finances, and everything related to like your family, holidays, and pets and all of that. That financial binder, which these binders come with Mad Lib workbooks, where I'm like, fill in here, because that's what I wanted in 2009. I wanted a workbook where it'd be like, here's a social, go find this, go find this. I have helped many people settle estates when I was doing in-home professional organizing, talk to estate lawyers and all of this. And I'll say to them, why didn't you give her the paperwork for this thing? And he's like, well, I don't know what paper she has. Like, even estate lawyers don't know how to tell you to go on the scavenger hunt because they don't know what you need. It's so mad. I'm like, how has no one figured this out before? So the financial binder is, if you're only going to do one thing, buy and do the financial binder. Fill it out in paper with all of your important documents in there, and at least you have a starting place for someone. Because even if you don't settle an estate, you probably will be the power of attorney for someone. Like when people are in the hospital for a while, somebody's got to take care of their finances. And so we don't like to think about it, and we don't like to do it. I don't like to do it because I don't want to know how much money I don't have. But this is part of adulting. So just do your homework.
And it brings us back to task initiation. This is one of those things that we all know could be done, and I'll get to that next week, next month. Yeah, I got to do it, but find a way, your own personal way, to say, take a deep breath, and just start. I would say, I'm learning from you. I would say, step 1, buy the binder. Just get the binder. Get the binder, and then once you've got the binder, step 2, start with page 1. Just a little bit, and you will eventually figure your way through it. This also makes so much sense for me because as my mother is aging, she has a cupboard in her kitchen. When you open the cupboard door, it's all Post-it notes with all of her pins, her account numbers, her everything. Her entire life is analog in this cupboard. And then she's got a paper calendar where she notes everything on that paper calendar. So in order to help her with that transition, it's going to have to be analog, no matter what. So then I want to make sure that people who hear this and want to learn more about you and Organize 365, I'll include in the show notes a link to your website, a link to your LinkedIn page. If there are any other links you want me to share, just send them to me, and I'll include them in the show notes. Any final, I don't know, guidance, words of wisdom? Oh, actually, okay. Actually, here's one more. While I've got you, I'm going to use you unfairly as
Great. I love it.
One of my challenges with task initiation in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I exercised every day because I drove to work. There was a gym on the way to work. I stopped at that gym, and most of the time I would go to the gym. I would change my clothes, not necessarily sure that I was going to work out or not. But once you get the clothes on, once you get the shoes on, and that's where I would take a shower. So I had this whole routine. But then when we transitioned in the pandemic to work from home, first I had no exercise equipment, but then we moved to a place where in my basement today, I have all the equipment I need. I have everything. It's absolutely everything. And it has sat there. Occasionally I will move things around, like, oh, I'll position this a little differently, but not actually using it. And it should be easier. I mean, it is actually logically easier today, or would be if I would do it, than it was years ago. I'm not sure how to, initiate, except I'm thinking maybe like after this webinar, I don't have any meetings for the rest of the day. I'm thinking, okay, at least I'm saying the words. So when we finish, maybe I'll go change my clothes and do something, even if it's just a little thing, because I haven't worked out in 2 years now. And unfortunately, it's starting to show. So any guidance on exercise related?
Well, I don't know. I just started working out for the first time 18 months ago. So I lived my first 50 years not working out at all. And I tricked myself by having someone come into the office to work out with, and I had it like as a team building thing. Now I actually go to a gym. And the reason I go to a gym is because my daughter had her second child. And so in order to help her, I take the first child to the gym with me. I joined a bougie gym. And so we go there Saturday mornings. We go there, a couple of times a week. And now I'm just now starting to go just for myself an additional day or two a week. So I think this just leads to, we are so habitual as people. And as soon as you change our routines and our habits, it's really hard. So you're saying that you're noticing things physically that you don't like. The additional pressure I'm going to put on you is that we don't get old. We don't stop walking because we get old. We get old because we stop walking. That is scientifically proven. If you put mice on treadmills, they will reverse their age. They will make more BDNF. And for women, BDNF is the equivalent of estrogen in a woman's body over the age of 50, which is why I'm working out. So exercising is extremely, extremely, extremely important. I know you didn't need any guilt, but I'm Irish Catholic. So there you go. There's your little bit of guilt.
This is exactly what I needed. And what I realized is oftentimes what looks like lack of organization or lack of task, it just be lack of energy. And,
right.
And I do know that energy begets energy.
Right.
Exercising begets more energy. It doesn't sap you. Sometimes it saps your energy, but mostly it creates more energy. And so what I need to do is I just need to think through, like, reworking my mental cues, because I realized years ago I had certain cues that would drive me to exercise. Those don't exist anymore. So I'm going to have to create different cues to just go and do, and at least do it once. And then see.
And I don't know if you like working out in the morning or the afternoon or how many times a day, but I know Saturday morning is one of the times I do it. So my daughter she lives with us with the grandchildren. She knows that the 4-year-old can come up at 8:00. So he's like, hi. So obviously I'm going to the gym because I have him until noon. So we got to go somewhere. So I'll get dressed and I will go. So if you got up in the morning and got dressed in the workout gear, and then you took your shower after, because me, it's always about when's the shower going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to do middle of the day. So it's morning or the evening. The other thing I would say is maybe you need something different now than you did before, like a different, like I know I've seen that tonal machine that's like everything all on the wall. Or maybe if you did some virtual coaching with somebody where you're like, okay, they're going to meet you at 8:00 online and they're on the TV and they're doing it with you just like to hold you accountable. Sometimes people need something to hold them accountable. And if you're not that kind of person, maybe you have some kind of a guilty pleasure that you're not having time to watch. Like you want to watch Yellowstone for the third time or something like that. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go watch an episode of Yellowstone. And I'm going to go do this.
Game of Thrones seasons 1
there
through 8.
You go. There you go. Game of Thrones or,
Yeah.
podcast, whatever, like, and I would task stack it of like, oh, and then I'm also going to get this thing for breakfast, or I'm going to go out to breakfast with my wife, or I'm going to go get a little smoothie or coffee or whatever. Like, make it really like, oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. That makes total sense. So truly, Lisa, this is hugely helpful. I'm sure people took a lot out of this. And I would say for those of you who are, leadership nerds, because we have a lot of leadership nerds who listen to this podcast. Think about not only yourself, but the leaders around you. Many of them are under stress. Many of them are burdened. Many of them feel the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I know this to be true because this course that I mentioned to you, Getting Stuff Done, is so popular. But what I notice is they come to that course and they mentally think what they need is to figure out how to get more stuff done. And it's just like they're adding to their burden. Like, oh, okay, I'm carrying 20-pound weights now, but I need to go to a course to learn to carry 40-pound weights. The goal is not to carry 40-pound weights. It's actually to make the 20-pounders feel more like 10. It's to give you a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of space. So this has been fantastic, Lisa. You and I probably could talk for another 2 hours on topics like this. If people, like I said, in the show notes, people will find out how to get hold of you further. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say that you are leading. Like if you're listening to podcasts like this, you are not a passive follower. You are a leader. You're leading at home. You're leading at work. You're leading in your community. My question to you would be, it's a little bit hard, but where are you leading people? Like, do you want people to be replicating what you're doing? Because that's what a leader does. They create something that they want people to replicate. So are you really replicating the life that you want people to be living? Are you really prioritizing what you should be prioritizing? Because people are following you. And leaders have a responsibility to think about the people who are following them.
You got to stop doing this because you ask questions. and the moment you said it, I think, so these particular habits of mine that I think are just mine, but I realize the world sees them and some parts of the world echo them.
Yes.
And I may be leading by example without even thinking that I'm leading by example, whether it's over busyness, lack of time, lack of focus, whatever it may be, your daily habits as a leader get echoed by the people around you, for good or bad. So, all right. Sometimes hard truth is the best. So thank you, Lisa. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.